Revealed. The incredible untold story of Pearl Harbor's hidden West Loch disaster, a life-changing day for one young mechanic, Jake Thompson, jolted awake to the blaring alarm of his small, cluttered room. The sun crept through the threadbare curtains, spilling golden rays onto the floor, but the light couldn't brighten the weight on his heart. At just 22, Jake was a mechanic at the Naval Yard in Pearl Harbor, scraping by every day to support his sick mother and younger sister, Lily. Across the way, the gleaming houses of affluent neighbors stood tall, mocking him with their polished facades. Every sleek car and immaculate lawn whispered reminders of his struggle, and it stung like salt in an open wound. Jake shook the thoughts off and gathered his tools for another day at the yard. The smell of oil and metal greeted him as he entered the crowded workshop. Sweat and toil hung thick in the air, yet his peers, the privileged children of officers, looked through him as if he were a ghost. Behind their laughter and banter, Jake felt the sharp edge of social divide cut deep, leaving him struggling with the shame of his modest job. With every slap of a wrench, he poured his heart into his work, desperate to prove he was more than just a mechanic. Yet it never felt quite enough. The fateful morning was like any other, or so he thought. As the sun climbed higher, chaos erupted. A military exercise went horribly wrong, and in the blink of an eye, an explosion rocked West Loch. The ground trembled, the sky blackened with smoke, and screams pierced the air. Jake's heart raced, fear and adrenaline blending in his chest like a potent cocktail. Without a second thought, he surged into the pandemonium, fixing his mind on one goal: saving lives. "Damn it, there are still men in there," he shouted, plunging into the flames and debris. The heat scorched and clawed at him, but Jake wouldn't back down. He dragged sailors from the wreckage, their faces pale and eyes wide with disbelief. Each rescue felt like a victory against fate itself, but the haunting silhouettes of loss twisted at his soul. In that moment, Jake wasn't just a mechanic. He was a hero. Yet, that heroism was quickly swallowed by a cold and unyielding machine. The media buzzed with stories from high-ranking officials, glorifying their decisions while silhouetting Jake's vital actions into obscurity. No accolades for him, just the sound of silence where recognition should have been. Back at home, the air was heavy with blame. Lily, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, couldn't grasp why her brother, the man who risked everything, remained nameless. "You could have been someone, Jake. You could have shared your story," she cried, the hurt of disappointment cutting through their fragile family ties. Their mother watched, torn between pride for her son and the cracks forming within their family foundation. Anguish darkened her face, as if every word was a reminder of the burdens they carried. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The tension crackled in the air like static before a storm as Jake confronted the disheartening truth about the world around him. Just when hope seemed lost, an old war veteran named Mr. Caldwell, once a beacon in the community, stepped forward. "You did what men are made for, son. Family loyalty means rallying for each other," he declared, lighting a small flame of hope in Jake's heart. But that flicker also brought uncertainty. Could he trust the community to see beyond their prejudices? As he stood on the precipice of a fight for justice, Jake felt the weight of his family's love and expectations heavy on his shoulders. Would he rise to take his place in the narrative? Would the neighborhood acknowledge a mechanic-turned hero? Or was he destined to fade into the shadows once more? The questions loomed, swirling in the air, waiting for answers. Jake took a deep breath, the salty air filling his lungs, seemingly whispering promises of change and courage. Mr. Caldwell's words resonated within him, sparking a controlled fury. Maybe he wasn't just a silent actor in this hidden drama. He glanced at the old veteran, who watched him with eyes full of empathy and pride. It was as if Caldwell saw right through the mask Jake wore daily, pressing against the walls he had built around his true self. Days passed since that devastating explosion. Word of the incident drifted through the town, slowly but surely. Whispers grew louder, until they turned into rumors about the heroic actions of unknown saviors. Jake felt a tug at his heart, hope mingled with the hum of anxiety. Every time someone mentioned the tragedy, his palms would sweat. Could he claim that title of hero, knowing that he had saved lives? The ache of anonymity fed a fire that refused to be extinguished. One evening, after a long day at the yard, Jake found Lily sitting on the steps of their small porch, staring into the distance. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of red and orange, but all he could see were shadows stretching over his sister's face. "Just thinking about what you did, Jake," she said softly, her voice trembling with a mix of admiration and confusion. "What if they never recognize you? What if you always stay a mechanic?" Her gaze flicked up to meet his, wide and searching. His heart ached at her innocence. "Lily, it's not always about recognition. Sometimes, doing the right thing is all that matters. I just wanted to save them, but you could make a difference. People should know what you did. You could inspire others." Lily's frustration washed over him like a wave, shaking his resolve. "You faced danger, Jake. You owe it to yourself." Her words cut a little deeper than he expected. "I owe it to them. To the men I couldn't save," he said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper, the shadows of that day creeping back into his mind. The sky turned dark as they fell into a silence filled with unspoken fears and hopes. Suddenly, rough laughter erupted from a group of neighbors nearby. Jake glanced toward the noise, a knot forming in his stomach. They were talking about heroes specifically, those who had received awards. But none of those names included him. "Look at them," he muttered bitterly. "They wouldn't recognize a hero if one presented himself at their door." Lily watched him, her expression shifting into determination. "Maybe it's time you made them see. Maybe you need to finally stand up and tell your story." Her words lingered in the air, electrifying the space between them. He felt the weight of his sister's challenge. Speak out? Share his truth? The thought terrified him, but it tugged at the depths of his spirit. What if he could inspire change, even in a small way? Just then, the flicker of an idea sparked in Jake's mind, but uncertainty mingled with excitement. Could he really do this? With a newfound flickering sense of purpose, Jake felt that he might finally take a step toward claiming his rightful place. But as he pondered his next move, the fear of rejection washed over him. Was the community ready to listen, or would he just be met with doubt? His heart raced as he looked down the familiar street, imagining a rally where he could speak the whispers of a crowd like distant echoes. What if they turned away? The challenge lay before him like a dark ocean beneath a starless sky, endless, vast, and frightening. But something told him that stepping into that darkness could guide him to light. As he grappled with his decision, a sharp sound disrupted his thoughts. A knock at their door. An unexpected visitor? Would this be the moment that changed everything? Jake felt his heart skip, the weight of anticipation pressing heavily upon him. Who was it? Jake's heart pounded as the knock echoed in the quiet evening air. He exchanged a glance with Lily, who raised her eyebrows in surprise, her excitement palpable. Gathering his courage, he rose from the step and crossed the small porch to open the door. Standing there was a tall, rugged man with broad shoulders and a kind smile. His hair was streaked with gray, signifying a life filled with stories. "Hello, Jake," the man said, his voice deep yet gentle. "I'm Frank Schneider, a reporter with the Herald." Jake froze for a moment, disbelief washing over him. "A reporter? Here?" Hi," Jake stammered, unsure how to respond. "What brings you here?" "I've been going around town, asking questions about the explosion. I've heard the name Jake pop up quite a bit. I wanted to hear your side of the story," Frank explained, a notebook poised in his hand, ready to capture every word. Really? I don't think there's much to tell." Jake felt the familiar walls of self-doubt rising, pushing him back towards anonymity. "Don't brush it off," Frank urged, his eyes sincere. "You did something extraordinary, and people deserve to know what happened from someone who was there. Could help others understand the true impact of that day. Lily stepped forward, her enthusiasm breaking through Jake's hesitance. Yes, right, Jake. You should tell him, she urged. Her face lit with hope. Jake looked from Frank's earnest gaze to his sister's encouraging eyes. A part of him yearned for the recognition, but another part resisted the idea of reliving all that pain. Yet there was also a flicker of something else, an urge to share, to connect, to help others. He took a deep breath, weighing his options. Okay. Come in, he finally said, stepping aside to let the reporter in. The soft glow of the living room light illuminated the dust in the air, the walls filled with family photos that somehow felt both comforting and suffocating. Once Frank settled in, he leaned forward, curiosity evident in his eyes. The community wants to know about some unknown heroes, he began, but I believe you have the power to show them that heroism often takes on many forms. What would you like to share? Jake hesitated, his emotions swirling like a storm within him. I was just trying to do the right thing, he murmured, feeling the weight of both their conversations rush back. But I couldn't save them all. I think that's the hardest part. A thick silence fell between them. Frank shifted, sensing the gravity of Jake's words. That's exactly why your voice matters, he said quietly. People need to understand the realities of bravery, the fear, the sacrifice. Your story can inspire others. Jake stared at the floor, grappling with his mixed emotions. Was he brave, or just someone who got lucky? I know it's tough, Frank continued, almost reading Jake's thoughts. But sometimes, sharing our pain can heal more than keeping it locked inside. Jake felt a spark flicker in his heart. Could he be that voice? Would the community hear him, see him, and finally understand? What if they don't listen? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Frank's gaze was steady. You won't know until you try. Sometimes the hardest step is just speaking up. As Jake pondered the words echoing within him, he looked over at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. The flickers of courage were battling the fears, but maybe, just maybe, this was his chance. Feeling the coming tide of change, he knew he had a decision to make. Would he take that leap into the unknown? Could he turn the pain of his experience into a metaphorical bridge, connecting him to the community? Taking a deep breath, Jake began to piece together his thoughts, ready to share a story that could finally lift the weight of isolation from his heart. But as he opened his mouth, an urgent phone call interrupted, ringing sharply, causing everyone to turn in surprise. Who could be calling now, and what news could fit into this moment of reckoning? The phone rang insistently, its tone cutting through the tension in the room. Jake's heart skipped a beat as he glanced at the caller ID. It was his old friend Rick. Was this about the explosion? Frank nudged his notebook closer, eyebrows raised, encouraging Jake to take the call. With shaky hands, Jake reached for his phone, his chest tightening. I need to take this, he said, stepping to the side but not without the lingering worry on Frank's face. Hey, Rick, he answered, trying to keep his voice steady. What's up? Jake, we've got a situation. Rick's voice was strained, a hint of urgency lacing his words. There's been another explosion. It's happening right now at the old factory site. Another explosion. Panic surged through Jake, the memories of the last incident flooding back. The smoke, the chaos, the fear. What do you mean, another explosion? Are people hurt? He stammered. I don't know yet, Rick replied. But they need help. They're calling for volunteers. Can you make it down there? Jake looked over at Lily and Frank, who were now listening closely, their concern palpable. He could feel the weight of the room pressing in on him. This could be a chance to redeem his past, to be the person he wished he had been before. I'm on my way, Jake said firmly, determination creeping into his voice as he hung up. Lily stepped forward, her eyes wide with worry. Jake, are you going? Do you think you should? He could see her apprehension. The last explosion had rocked their lives. I have to, he replied. People could be trapped. This is what we talked about, right? It's my chance to do something. Frank caught his eye, admiration mingling with disbelief. It's courageous of you to go back, Jake. But it's also dangerous. Nothing is more dangerous than doing nothing, Jake said, surprising even himself with the strength of his conviction. Then I'm going with you, Lily declared, stubborn resolve lighting her features. If you're going, I'm going. Jake felt a warm swell in his chest at her loyalty. He wanted to protect her, but he couldn't deny her courage. Fine, he finally said, a soft smile breaking through. But we stick together. Jake quickly grabbed his jacket, the fabric feeling familiar as it embraced him like an old friend. He turned to Frank, who was still sitting there, visibly torn between the urge to follow the story and the ethical dilemma of reporting in the middle of a disaster. Are you coming? Jake asked impulsively, not wanting to leave Frank behind. Frank looked at the two siblings, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Jake could see the internal struggle etched upon the reporter's features. This was more than just a story now. This was life. You're right. Frank finally nodded, standing up with renewed purpose. This isn't just about the story anymore. I'll help too. Let us go together. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. They were three unlikely allies, bonded by the weight of shared trauma and the hope for redemption. As they raced out the door and into the chaotic night, the cold wind whipped around them, sharp and real. It was like stepping into another world, one filled with uncertainty, but also a potent sense of urgency. Jake's heart raced, not just with fear but with a flicker of hope. Together, they would face whatever awaited them at the factory site. And maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward healing for him, for Lily, and for a community yearning for heroes. But as they turned the corner, headlights suddenly flooded their faces, and they froze. A large vehicle appeared, moving dangerously fast. What was happening now? Would their path to help be derailed before it even started? Jake's heart thudded violently against his ribcage as the headlights pierced through the darkness. The vehicle barreled towards them, its metal frame gleaming ominously under the streetlights. He barely had time to react as the driver slammed on the brakes, screeching to a halt just inches away. The trio instinctively took a step back, bracing for impact but relieved to see the truck didn't hit them. The driver, a heavy-set man with a rugged face and wild hair, leaned out of the window, his eyes wide with panic. Get in. We can't waste time, he shouted, urgency spilling from his voice. What? Jake blinked, confused. It's chaos down there. They need everyone they can get. Simon. The driver waved his arms frantically, his face etched with worry. Without waiting for further prompting, Jake glanced at Lily and Frank. We should go. If he's offering a ride, we can't pass it up. Lily hesitated, her brow furrowing. But what if he's trust me? Jake interrupted, the weight of their mission pressing against him. We can't walk all the way there. It'll waste precious time. Lily swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay, let us do it. They hopped into the back of the truck, the metal floor cold against their skin. Frank flipped open his notebook, his reporter instincts kicking in, jotting down notes as the truck lurched forward, engines roaring to life. The driver glanced back at them in the rearview mirror. Mike, you guys ready for some reality? Yeah, as ready as we'll ever be, Jake muttered, stealing a glance at Lily. Her determination lit the air around them, and he felt a surge of support. As they sped through the streets, sirens wailed in the distance, a symphony of distress that sent shivers down Jake's spine. The scent of smoke began to permeate the air, tangy and acrid, a stark reminder of the devastation awaiting them. The truck rounded a corner, and suddenly the factory site sprawled out before them in a nightmarish tableau. Flames flickered like angry tongues, casting a hellish glow against the darkening sky. Emergency vehicles crowded the lot, and the shouts of firefighters mingled with terrified cries of onlookers, people wringing their hands, desperate for news. Jake's stomach knotted. This wasn't just about helping anymore. It was about confronting the demons that had haunted him since the last explosion. Would he rise to the challenge this time? They jumped down from the truck as Mike parked. The chaos hit them like a wave. Everywhere he looked, people were moving fast, some carrying stretchers, others tossing debris aside with grim determination. Over there, Mike shouted, pointing toward a group of volunteers forming a line. They're organizing the rescue effort. Get in line. Jake nodded, urging Lily and Frank to follow. The heat clawed at his skin as they wove through the throng of panicked voices and billowing smoke. Stay close, Jake shouted, leading them into the heart of mayhem. Every step took him deeper into the storm of chaos, past men and women sorting through rubble, shouting orders, and struggling against their own fears. Then something caught his eye, a flash of movement beneath a pile of debris. A hand. Help! A muffled voice cried out from the darkness. Adrenaline surged. Jake's heart raced as he crouched by the pile, pulling aside crumbled concrete. The cries grew louder, desperate. Stay back! A firefighter yelled, rushing towards him. But Jake couldn't stop. Someone's trapped. We have to get them out. He shouted, determination overriding his fear. Jake, wait! Lily's voice pierced through the madness, but he barely heard her. Time slowed as he dug deeper, heart pounding. What if it was too late? What if they couldn't save whoever was beneath that rubble? Would this be another failure for him, another weight to carry? Or could this moment be different? He steeled himself for what lay ahead. But it was too late to turn back now. Jake's hands plunged into the debris with frantic urgency. Each rock and shard felt like another second lost. Another moment where the cries for help could fade into silence. Panic clawed at him, but he forced it back, focusing on the cries echoing in his ears. Jake, please! Lily's voice was a strained whisper, but it grounded him. He could feel the heat of the flames close by, but the heat from the hand he uncovered burned through him like a flare of hope. Higher up in the pile, more voices joined the first, calling out, lost and frightened. Help! Please help us! Hang on! We're almost there! Jake shouted back, though he could barely hear himself over the chaos around him. The firefighter approached him, eyes wild and resolute. We need to clear the area. This could collapse. But Jake ignored him, too focused on the task at hand. With every piece he lifted, he felt a wave of determination surge through him. He wouldn't give up on them. Not now. Jake! Come on! We're doing our best. Frank chimed in, glancing uneasily at the firefighter. We can't just dig without a plan. But the urgency in Jake's chest echoed louder than their worries. We have to try. He grunted, pulling another chunk of concrete aside. His fingers raw and scraped. Suddenly, he felt a tug. It was something alive, pulling at him. We've got you, he shouted, his heart racing with hope as he grasped the hand and pulled, revealing a face young, scared, and streaked with dust. Thank you. Oh, thank you, the girl cried, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks, her voice a sweet, piercing note in the cacophony. Jake quickly freed her, the adrenaline coursing through him like a lifeline. You're safe now, it's okay, he assured her, glancing back to the firefighter who watched him with a mix of annoyance and admiration. Get back, the firefighter yelled, shooing away the gathering crowd. Clear the area. As they pulled the girl free, Jake's gaze flickered back at the rubble. There were still others trapped beneath. He could see it, hear them, but there was a sudden swell of bodies rushing toward him, volunteers trying to help, panic creeping into the air. Lily grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. Jake, we can't save everyone. We have to help them move out of here. But he couldn't leave. In the depths where he had found the girl, he felt the pull of desperation, a burning need to pull everyone to safety. There may still be people trapped. Jake, listen to me. Lily's voice was firm, cutting through his thoughts. We need to make sure everyone gets out alive. We can't be reckless. For a second, it felt as if the world disappeared, leaving just the two of them standing in the chaos, rooted in their beliefs. But what if Jake? Frank shouted, interrupting. It's too dangerous. Look at the fire. We need to regroup. Jake's heart sank. The truth hung heavy in the air. They couldn't outmuscle the flames, or the exertion threatening to tear him apart. He nodded, the weight of the moment settling bleakly on his shoulders. Okay, but I want to leave until I know they're okay. They moved back, guided by the urgency of the firefighters now organizing evacuations. Every face was a mix of fear and resilience, and just as he thought he might drown in the tide of regret, the sight of the girl he saved sparkled amongst the chaos. In that moment he realized it wasn't about how many they saved. It was about saving one life at a time. As they stepped back from the debris, they watched the firefighters push in, tools in hand, determination in their stride. But Jake's gaze drifted back toward the still-burning hellscape, scenes of horror flickering in his mind. The noise began to fade, replaced by the thudding of his heart and the sounds of frantic rescuing efforts. He knew this fight was far from over. What more would they uncover in the ruins of Heartache? Before he could catch his breath, a voice came over the radio, urgent, distorted. "We've got multiple reports of trapped victims throughout the site. We need more help." Jake turned to Lily, an unspoken agreement hanging between them, igniting a new fire within. "Let us go save some more," he said, determination etched across his face. But as they prepared to dive back into the fray, he couldn't shake the question edging into his thoughts: could they face what awaited them? Or would chaos consume them all? Jake took a deep breath, the acrid smoke filling his lungs, but he pushed it away. He was ready to step back into chaos. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to act, to pull someone else from the wreckage. He tightened his grip on the tools given to him: a crowbar, a shovel, whatever he could find. His heart raced not just with the thrill of adrenaline but from the weight of responsibility pressing on him like the debris above. "Jake!" Lily's voice was firm, pulling him from his thoughts. "Stay focused. We need a plan." He nodded, barely meeting her eyes. "We'll find a systematic way to dig." Sounded good. It felt right. But deep down, he knew time was slipping away, and he couldn't take any chances. The firefighters were now assessing the site, their shouts mixing with the unsettling sounds of shifting metal and crumbling concrete. Jake watched as one of the men pointed to the far side of the rubble. "That area looks unstable. We need to make it safe first." But Jake's mind was elsewhere. There were voices still trapped somewhere beneath the wreckage, and each cry tugged at his heart, amplifying his urgency. Lily moved closer. "Help me with this side, Jake. We can push through here." She knelt down, ready to dig, he followed her, feeling fired up by her determination. They worked together, side by side, each motion in sync like two dancers performing to a haunting melody of desperation and hope. With every slab of concrete they lifted, the cries seemed to amplify, echoing louder and louder, calling out to him, needing him, begging him. Suddenly, they heard a clearer voice from the depths. "Help! Someone! Please! We're running out of time." Jake locked eyes with Lily, both of them sharing a moment of fear and determination. "That's them!" he yelled. "We can't stop now." With renewed fervor, they dug deeper, flinging debris aside, sweat mingling with dirt on their brows. Then, at the edge of their sight, Jake spotted something: an arm, trapped under a steel beam. He gasped, "Lily, over here. I think I see someone." She crouched down beside him, her face pale but focused. "We have to be careful. If the beam shifts..." Her voice trailed off, but they both knew the risk. With no time to lose, they called to the firefighters for help. A burly man arrived, his face covered in soot but eyes blazing with determination. "What do we have?" "Right under this beam." Jake pointed, adrenaline pumping through him. The firefighter surveyed the situation, his brow furrowing with concern as he assessed the beam's precarious position. "Stand back. We'll need to stabilize it first." Moments turned into an eternity as they waited, the weight of suspense heavy in the air. Jake's heart drummed in his chest, each beat echoing the fear that he might lose another life. Finally, with a team of firefighters, they managed to secure the beam enough to lift it slightly. The trapped person was clearly visible now, a young man, battered but alive, eyes wide with fear that morphed into sheer relief as they worked to free him. "Don't worry, we got you," Jake yelled. As they uncovered his body, the young man winced but kept his gaze fixed on Jake, who smiled back, trying to reassure him even through the chaos surrounding them. "We're almost there." Just as the last pieces of debris fell away, Another loud crash filled the air. The ground shook beneath them, a terrifying reminder of the destruction still lurking. "Everyone back!" The firefighter's voice rang out. A sense of dread washed over Jake. What if fate thwarted their rescue? What if they didn't reach him in time? They pulled the boy free, gasping for breath. Relief surged within Jake, followed almost instantly by a horror that froze him in place. "Jake!" Lily shouted, cutting through the chaos. Her face was pale with worry. "The fire is spreading. We have to go. Now!" Panic surged in his chest. They were finally saving lives, yet now they faced a new threat. How could they leave anyone behind? He looked down at the young man they had just rescued, whose eyes now mirrored his deep-seated fear. "Let us go," Lily shouted again, with firemen moving hand in hand to usher them back to safety. But as Jake turned, a chilling thought crossed his mind: how many more were still trapped beneath the rubble? As they retreated from harm, a new voice echoed, breaking through the crackling chaos: "We need more people over here. Another family is trapped." Jake hesitated, the weight of his decision heavy. Could he step away? Could he stand idle while others still needed help? With hesitation gripping his heart, he turned to see Lily's worried expression and felt the pull of desperation tightening around him. "Can we save them?" he whispered, the doubt creeping in again. The chaos raged on, the walls of the disaster pressing around them, ready to collapse. Would they find the courage to face the flames again? Or would uncertainty swallow them whole? Jake's heart sank as the cries for help intensified. He could feel the heat licking at his back, the acrid smoke swirling like a dark blanket. There was a choice to be made, and the weight of it pressed down hard. Could he really risk his life again? Would it ever be enough? "Jake!" Lily's voice snapped him back. She grabbed his arm, urgency in her eyes. "We need to go, but I can't just leave them." "I know," he breathed, torn between the urge to rescue more lives and the instinct for self-preservation. The memories of the last few hours flooded back: the cries, the collapse, the fear. He felt like he was stuck in the very moment they had just escaped. "There's no guarantee we'll get back," Lily said, and he could hear the tremor in her voice. She was scared too. "But if we don't go now, they might." The words hung heavy in the air. Jake took a deep breath, pushing the panic aside. What if we went just a little closer? Just to see? Before she could argue, he was already moving, despite her grip tightening. He forced himself through the haze, his eyes darting around for any sign of the trapped family. The chaos created a twisted landscape where hope danced with despair. "Over here," another voice shouted, and his feet instinctively followed it. A group of firefighters converged on the entrance of a collapsed structure, their shouts mixing with the crackling sounds of the spreading fire. "Jake, wait!" Lily called, but he couldn't. The pull of the cries was magnetic, pulling him closer until he found himself crouched by a piece of wreckage with a team of firefighters. "Stay low," one man barked. "There might be another explosion." Jake scanned the area, his hands itching to help, to contribute, to save. "Where are they? How can we help?" A firefighter gestured to a pile of debris. "We think a family is trapped under there, but we need to check for gas leaks first." Jake nodded, heart racing. Every second counted. "What if we can lift that edge just enough to hear them?" "Good idea," the firefighter said, glancing back at his team. They shuffled into position, every grunt and movement echoing the urgency. Lily crouched beside Jake, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "Please be safe," she whispered, more to herself than to him. As they pried their way under the debris, the layer of smoke thickened, making it hard to breathe. Jake could feel the heat of the fire creeping closer, a relentless reminder of the risks they were taking. "Can you hear me?" Jake shouted, hoping for a response. "We're here to help. Can you say something?" Silence fell, the tension building unbearably. The firefighters strained to lift the weight, but Jake felt a stirring, a faint whisper of a voice somewhere beneath. "Help!" Jake's blood ran cold, yet it ignited a fire within him. "There's someone. Keep going." They worked feverishly, more debris lifting, more pieces falling. And then, just as Jake leaned down again, He spotted movement through the darkness, a tiny hand, struggling to break free from the doom above. He could barely contain himself. Hold on. We're almost there. The family, a mother and 2 children, were beneath the wreckage. Jake caught the eye of the firefighter beside him. We're close. We can't stop. They exchanged a knowing glance, pushing the debris aside, their hope intermingled with fear. But just as they got it high enough for a small voice to break through, the building shuddered again, another crack running through the air. Get back. We have to get out. Lily's scream echoed in his ears, but the look in his eyes told a different story. He couldn't leave them behind. The ground shook violently, and it felt like the walls of the world were closing in. No, he shouted against the noise. They're right there. Jake, now. Lily grabbed his arm with urgency, pulling him back, but he was frozen. Just as debris rained down, blocking their view, he heard the final cry of the mother. Help us. Jake's heart dropped. As reality threatened to tear him apart, he wanted to scream, but all he could do was stand there, fear anchoring him in place. Jake, he felt Lily squeeze his hand, her voice haunting. We have to go. But that when a desperate thought flickered to life. If he could get to the other end, there might still be a way down to them. Would he dare? With the chaos swirling around, one thing was clear. He had to make a choice. Could he save them, or would he lose everything? As the dust settled and the flames danced dangerously nearby, Jake's resolve hardened. He turned, determination etched across his face. We have to find another way. But the flames leaped higher, bright and wild, suffocating any thought of retreat. Could he truly navigate through the flames, or would they consume him whole? The disaster, it seemed, was far from over. Jake's pulse thundered in his ears as he quickly assessed their surroundings. The building creaked ominously overhead, a reminder that time was slipping away like sand through his fingers. We can't stay here. Lily's voice was a sharp edge in the thick, smoky air, pulling him back to reality. But Jake knew they had to try one more time. If we move toward the back of the building, we might find another entrance, he suggested, his voice hoarse but filled with determination. He could still hear the faint cries for help, a steady reminder that hope lingered somewhere beneath the rubble. Are you sure? Lily's brow furrowed, doubt and fear warring in her eyes. What if the whole thing collapses? She took a step closer, her fear almost palpable. But Jake felt the raw urgency propelling him forward. Those kids need us. We have to do something. The weight of his own fear twisted in his gut. But the thought of leaving behind the family buried under the debris turned his stomach even more. He held on to that desperation, pushing himself to focus. The duo carefully navigated through the stifling smoke, the heat radiating from the flames licking at their heels as they made their way to the building's rear. Jake's thoughts raced. What if they could find an exit? What if they could really save them? He forced himself to believe it as the sound of crackling would echoed around them. Keep your head down, he urged Lily as they ducked beneath an overhanging beam, the air growing even thicker with every step. He could hear the distant sounds of emergency vehicles and shouting, yet they all felt so far away. The world outside continued its frantic dance, while they navigated their own personal hell as they rounded the corner. The fire blazed brightly against the darkening sky. The back of the building loomed like a monster ready to swallow them whole. But there, lying tangled and broken, was a piece of concrete that might serve as a crawl space. It felt like a flicker of hope in an otherwise suffocating situation. If we can wiggle through there, Jake pointed to the gap, excitement bubbling within his chest. We could reach the basement. Lily looked doubtful, but something unsaid passed between them, a connection woven from shared fear and determination. Okay, let us do it, she finally said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. Jake crawled through the small opening, forcing himself to ignore the chaos around him. The air was cooler here, but the suffocating weight of debris still pressed down, every breath coming in labored gasps. At the very end, he could see faint flickers of movement in the shadows, and his heart raced with the possibility of finding the family. They were still alive. Can you see them? Lily called from behind him, her voice threaded with urgency. Yes, Jake shouted back, his voice a mix of elation and disbelief. They're here, just beyond the debris. He could see small shapes huddled in the dark. There was definitely someone there. He pushed against the remaining rubble, adrenaline surging as he pried larger pieces aside, revealing the small family huddled together. "You're safe. We're here," he yelled to them. Their eyes widened, their faces lined with fear but flickering with cautious hope. However, before they could crawl through to safety, the ground trembled with a violent force. A loud crack broke through the air, chaos crashing down as the structure shuddered dangerously. "Jake!" Lily screamed, fear piercing through the thick smoke. "No, no, no," he whispered frantically. He had to act fast. "Just a little more. Hold on. We're almost there." But as he reached for the family, he felt the ground beneath him give way. The weight of the building shifted dangerously, and Jake was pushed backward, struggling against the cascade of rubble that threatened to bury them all. "Get out!" Lily's voice cracked as she scrambled back, desperate. "It's going to collapse." The raw panic surged around him, leaving no room for doubt. Jake took one last look at the family as he was forced back. The pleading in their eyes etched in his mind like a scar. "Come on. Let us go," Jake shouted to Lily, realization dawning harshly. He had to get them both to safety or risk losing everything. Just as they turned to escape, a sharp sound filled the air, a deafening snap. Jake! His heart stopped, unable to comprehend the chaos that would unfold next. What would happen if they didn't make it out? Would he have the chance to go back for them? The moment of reckoning was upon them, hanging in the air like smoke. Would they escape this nightmare? The path ahead was uncertain, but one truth remained: Jake wasn't done fighting yet. He would find a way or perish trying. Jake's determination surged like the flames that danced dangerously close. He pulled Lily away, their hearts racing as the building creaked ominously around them. "We have to hurry," he shouted, weaving through the smoke, knowing that every second counted. Just as they reached the main exit, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. "No!" Jake felt gravity tug at his feet. The world tilted, and crashing sounds echoed around them like the roar of a beast awakened from slumber. "Get out!" he yelled, urgency painting each syllable as they scrambled through the door, the air thick with ash and fear. They burst into the night, gasping for breath, the chill cutting through the heat of chaos. Behind them, the building crumbled, a cloud of dust and debris exploding into the night sky. The sound was deafening, and for a moment, silence engulfed them. Jake's heart sank. He had taken the decision to leave the family behind, and that thought clawed at his insides. "Jake, look!" Lily pointed at the crowd gathered. Faces of neighbors and firefighters turned towards the debris, eyes wide with horror. "They're still trapped. Can they hear me?" Jake could barely think straight. He felt a burning knot in his stomach. He had to act. The pull towards those in need was unbearable, and he seized a nearby shovel, but Lily held his arm tightly. "Jake, we can't go back," she pleaded, eyes wide with concern. "It's too dangerous." But her words collided with his fear. "I have to try. I can't leave them," he stammered, his own breath ragged with desperation. She knew him too well and could see the tumult of emotions churning inside. "Jake, listen." Lily squeezed his hand, embodying a calm he desperately needed. "They will get help. We just came out alive. That means something. We can't risk losing you too." Jake hesitated, heart pounding. But he sighted the firefighters already rushing to assess the situation, their training kicking in despite their own fear. He was about to suggest getting in line to help when another voice cut through the gravity of the moment, a familiar face stepping through the haze of the crowd. "Jake!" Frank broke through the throng, notebook in tow, but his eyes held a different fire now. "People are talking about you. They saw what you did today. Everyone's rallying together for their heroes." The words stirred something within Jake, hope igniting in the cracks of despair. "Heroes?" he said, disbelief mingling with a spark of realization that he might actually be seen for who he was. "Yes," Frank insisted, urgency rushing his words. "You showed courage today, Jake. Your name is becoming known. The community is starting to understand. Jake's breath hitched. Could it be? Could he finally emerge from the shadows? But then a thought pierced through the newfound excitement, as vivid as the cries that still echoed in his ears. What about the family? Help us on the way, Frank assured him, waving towards the firefighters who were now setting up drones and equipment to tackle the wreckage. They've got resources. We're going to get them out. Lily's grip on Jake's arm tightened. Please, let's stay together. As Jake looked around, he saw neighbors gathering, hands joining to lift each other, support flowing like fresh water into parched ground. The once unfamiliar faces morphed into comrades, united under the glaze of disaster. They were ready to stand, together, and fight. In that moment, Jake understood. It wasn't just about the recognition. It was bigger than him. It was about lives, about family, about collective strength. And he wasn't alone. With resolve, Jake turned toward Lily, meeting her gaze. Okay, let us rally together. Let us help them save everyone we can. The determination in her eyes matched his. Frank nodded, noting their epiphany. I'll spread the word. We'll organize everything. He sprang into action, his fingers flying over his notepad like a conductor orchestrating a symphony. As they waited, the tension thickened. Each second felt like an hour as crews worked tirelessly to lift the rubble. Finally, shouts erupted from the clearing crowd. We got someone. Jake's heart raced as he and Lily surged forward, the emotions bubbling to the surface. Together, they witnessed the rescue, a small boy first, followed by the mother, a tableau of relief and joy that would remain etched in their memories forever. Tears streamed down the mother's face, unabashedly grateful. Thank you. Thank you, she cried as Jake sent a silent thankful wish towards the heavens. In that moment, he realized it was never just about being the hero. It was about connection, community, and love, the roots of resilience that tightened around them in the face of despair. That night, as they walked home, hand in hand, the stars blinked overhead, whispering unity above their heads. Jake finally felt the weight of isolation slip from his shoulders. Replaced with a sense of purpose, his heart was full now, knowing he had decided to step into the light. And it felt like freedom. Jake turned to Lily, a radiant smile on his face. This is who we are. We can change the narrative together. Lily nodded, hope sparkling in her eyes. You're a hero, Jake. Now people will see it too. And just like that, the hidden devastation of West Loch morphed into a beacon of inspiration. A day that would define not just Jake's journey but the communities as well. So, if you're with us and you've loved this incredible transformation, I need you to do something. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories of heart and change. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and get these stories out. Leave a comment to share your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread the light of hope and heroism.